Welcome to another episode of The Basement, where we like to talk about things theologically, practically, and hilariously. My name is Tristen, and we have a guest today. What's your name?
Curtis Morris.
Nice to see you on the podcast, Curtis.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, first things first. To get to know you a little bit more, have everyone know you a little bit. I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions, maybe a little bit on the wacky side, maybe a little bit deeper, but that's okay. That's okay. So let's start off. What would be your favorite action movie?
Favorite action movie? I'll just say I'll say Star Wars: Attack of the Clones.
Star Wars: Attack of the Clones?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. For a more deeper question, when did you first meet the Lord?
Oh man. Around 10 years old.
Okay. So you wanna let us in on what happened?
Honestly, it wasn't. So I grew up in a Christian household.
Okay.
And so I already had the background, but there was one day where a speaker was speaking,
mm-hmm.
and he was talking about baptism, and from what I remember, like the whole premise of it was to go deeper with God.
Okay.
And so, yeah, to me, it seemed like baptism was the way to go deeper with God.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, just been going deeper and deeper.
All right.
You know?
Cool. That's cool to hear. All right. What is your favorite fruit?
A banana.
Banana. That's a good fruit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Always great with breakfasts. Never can go wrong with a banana at breakfast.
Sorry.
It's alright.
Okay.
But yeah. All right, that was cool. What are you currently doing for college right now?
Right now, I am a senior theology major at Walla Walla University.
Okay, nice. So you're definitely going to be prepared for today. I like it. Also, by the way, D5, just to say. But today's episode is going to be on the book of Genesis. Okay. And we're going to take like an overview look of the book. So, some theologians have called it like a survey. So like going over major characters, a couple of major verses, and just giving like the overall story of that book and how it fits into the rest of the Bible.
Yeah.
So as far as Genesis goes, it's the first book of the Bible, beginning of the entire story of not just the Bible, but also of humanity. So a question I want to ask you, Curtis, is what makes Genesis so significant about it being the actual beginning? Like, why is it so significant as that?
I would say that it shows, I guess, how humanity had was at one point in time, and how they developed.
Okay.
So I feel like it can kind of just give a reference point to our behavior, because sometimes we can kind of just get caught up and think that, wow, humanity, we're just like this, and I feel like sometimes we can talk about how the world gets worse. Like, wow, it does get worse.
Right.
I feel like seeing Genesis is like there's times where it was even more worse. than things were.
Okay.
So.
Gotcha. Okay. And like the first verse of the entire book starts off like Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and it kind of just starts off showing us that the Bible is just as much, if not more, about God than it is about us.
Yes.
Just with that first verse.
Yes.
And then it goes into how He created everything after that with just a few spoken words, which is crazy. Because like I don't know of like any other like God that can say that they've created everything with only a few spoken words, like Greek mythology or Roman mythology. Like God is the only one that is the one true God, is the only God that spoke everything into existence, and He did it completely out of love for all of humanity.
Yes.
And the Bible lays that out very clearly, that He did it out of love for us.
Yes.
Not just for Himself.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Tell us a little bit about like the creation story.
The creation story, at least from what I've learned and from what I've read, it's a story of intention, because it says, because God says let us make man in our image.
Okay.
And it's like, with us, it's like it's God like wanting something, God wanting to create something, not just like not just create something random, but create something, I guess, like Him.
Right.
And then you even just seeing the world, like seeing the world be created. It like for each day, God states the intention. For there to be night and day, for creatures to roam the land and sea. So I really see it as a story of just intention. That creation wasn't just something random or something by chance. I learned in my systematic theology class that one of the views of creation is that that creation was a product of God's overwhelming energy, in which that's cool and all, but that makes it seem like it was happenstance. That it would like the energy was too overwhelming for God, that He just had to get it out. And like,
okay,
here's the world. But
gotcha. I see. Yeah, that's very interesting to go over, like Him actually having intention for every single thing that He did, because He is a purposeful God. He does everything with a purpose. He planned out every single detail of the plan to get all of humanity back. After they ate the fruit in the garden, which is where the fall comes in.
Yeah.
Adam and Eve, the first man and woman, they took the apple from the knowledge of the tree. Hold on. From the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Yeah. When God told them not to do it. And they committed the sin, and then they were thrown out of the garden. And so there was a plan in place for God to get all of humanity back, or give them a chance to come back to Him. Which ends up coming up in Jesus Christ. Which, if we go to Genesis chapter 3, we can see the first prophecy of Jesus, because when God is throwing Adam and Eve out of the garden and giving them a curse and giving the serpent a curse, He also gives a prophecy to the serpent, and it's going to be chapter 3, verses 14 and 15. It says, "Then the Lord God said to the serpent, 'Because you have done this, you are cursed more than any livestock, more than any wild animal. You will move on your belly and eat dust all the days of your life. I will put hostility between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He will strike your head, and you will strike his heel. And that's like a prophetic picture of the seed of Eve is going to be Jesus, and Jesus is going to be the ultimate victor over the serpent, Satan.
Yeah.
Which is really cool because it's like that. It's all starting here, like everything's starting here, which is crazy to think about. But later on in the story, there's other big stories that happen, like Noah, for example.
Yes.
What exactly is significant about the story of Noah?
I think the significant part about the story of Noah. So basically, like in chapter 6, it says the Lord regretted that he had made human beings on the earth, and his heart was deeply troubled. Then verse 7 says, so the Lord said, I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race I have created, and them with the animals. So basically, God's looking at the world and it's like, wow, this was a mistake. Humanity has to go. And so, basically, doom is coming upon humanity. But then, despite the doom that's coming, there's a sliver of hope. And that sliver of hope took the form of Noah, in which it said, like verse 8 says, but Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. And later on it says, Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. And basically, even though there is doom coming, even though God said that, oh, I'm going to wipe out all humanity, he still saw that there was at least, I guess, one human that was that was seemingly not, that was seemingly still worth keeping around. If I can say it like that.
Okay. Here's an interesting question to go back to the purpose of God and then this story here. How does God's intentionality work into him saying that he saw that man's wickedness was widespread and he thought nothing was good, everything was evil, and was like, if he was intentional about everything from the very beginning, and then he sees humanity as just chosen evil above everything else except for Noah, and how can we reconcile in our minds how God's intentionality with humanity being good at the beginning of time will work with God thinking that humanity is kind of now a mistake when it comes to the flood, except for Noah. So how do those two things?
Yeah, that's a hard question.
Yeah.
But I guess the way I attempt to reconcile it, the verse that pops up in my mind was from Ecclesiastes, and I think I forgot which chapter, but basically, it says God created man to be upright, but they went downward with their many schemes, and so God created man to be upright. States God's intention,
right?
But man went downward with their many schemes,
right?
Meaning that even though God intended for them,
right,
to be good, humanity had a choice, and their choices made them go downward. God wanted to be upright, but they went downward. So, that's the way I reconcile. I mean, I guess for I guess for example, like with our parents,
Mm-hmm.
you know, there are plenty of things that they had intended for us,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes we would go against that.
Mm-hmm.
I guess for like a silly thing. There's times where my mom would ask me to like put the meat in the oven.
Okay.
You know? And which most of the time I do, but then sometimes I would forget, and so that means that means dinner would come later
Right.
than usual. In which the intention was the intent was, okay, let's get dinner prepared so we have so by the time my parents come back,
Mm-hmm.
go ahead, the food they can make the food, and then we can eat sooner rather than later.
Right.
But since didn't have the meat in there like they told me to, we end up eating later than usual. I know that's like
Right.
silly thing, but I guess that's another way to
It compares. It works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's interesting how man has free will.
Mm-hmm.
Because like God could have made it so that we follow his every direction.
Yeah.
Without any opposition.
Mm-hmm.
But then we'd just be robots. Like if we just follow everything that he designed from the very beginning without having a choice, we're just robots. Mm-hmm. And something that I've thought about is that we can be entirely emotional, like rely upon emotions all the time and rely upon just things that we feel and things that we want and fleshly desires, and we act more like animals.
Mm-hmm.
But when we completely remove the emotions and only are left with the mind, we turn to robots.
Mm-hmm.
And God didn't want that for us.
Yes.
And he gave us emotions and choice as well as logic. Well, emotions and logic
Yeah.
to make choices. And he didn't want us to choose him just out of obligation, but out of love, which is what he did for us. He chose to create us out of love, so he wanted to have that same thing
Mm-hmm.
from us.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, this is the start of the biggest love story
Okay. Yeah.
of humanity. Because God started everything because he loved us.
Mm-hmm.
It says in John 3:16, one of the most popular, most quoted scriptures, "For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whosoever believes in him will not perish, but have eternal life."
Mm-hmm.
So he loves the world. He had a plan from the beginning. He has intentionality. But we see in here that humans, more often than not, will choose to leave God because they want to do their own thing.
Yes.
Because it's hard to just choose like full unconditional love all the time.
Uh-huh.
And we see that with the story of Noah, because humanity all of humanity except for Noah and his wife and his 3 sons, like all of humanity chose to go away from God.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they all came from the first man and woman who knew God.
Yes.
And who still had a relationship with God, because Cain and Abel gave sacrifices to God afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And so they knew God. And then eventually Cain was thrown out because he murdered his brother Abel. And that wasn't great, obviously.
Rest in peace to Abel.
Oh yeah, rest in peace to Abel.
He was disabled. Sorry, that was bad.
And then Seth comes along, and that's the third son of Adam and Eve, and then it relates like the sons of God to the line of Seth, and then the daughters of man relating to the daughters of Cain, and they end up intermingling and getting married and having children and all that sort of stuff. And it kind of talks about the Nephilim a little bit. We don't have to go into it, but oh my gosh, that's a topic for another day. There's like 3 different theories on Nephilim.
3. There's
Okay, there's more. There's like 3 major ones
Uh-huh.
on Nephilim. But it's like it's not essential at all. It's absolutely not essential.
No, it's not. I mean, basically, I guess this is so off topic, but basically, in almost every single religion in the world, there's like there's a mention of giants in every single religion. So it's like them boys must have been real, because how in the world does the entire world would have some kind of mention of tall people? So,
right.
Like really tall people.
I mean, you're a tall person.
Yes.
But you're not a giant.
Compared to you. Okay.
Okay.
That was all.
Yes, the short joke. All right. Anyways.
I mean, I was gonna make it towards like other short people, but you're right here. So why
I mean,
not?
it is a low hanging fruit. I mean, you know.
Okay. All right. I'm professional. I'm sorry.
Hey, we say theologically, practically, and hilariously. Okay, if we don't have jokes, we ain't doing this podcast right.
You're right.
So you have Noah. He makes an ark. He goes into it with a pair of each animal, onto the boat, and then like a bunch of other animals that are used for food sources and sacrifices to God. And then afterwards, they all come out after the flood, and the animals start repopulating the earth, and God gives Noah a covenant sign, which is the rainbow, which is a pretty stinking cool sign, because they never had a rainbow before that, if you think about
it. Huh. Okay. I guess you're right, because like
blown your mind. Yep.
That is a first. Okay.
Yeah. They never had a rainbow before that. But I think so. At the same time, they also didn't have rain before that. They never knew about rain. And so when it rained, and then it's like cloudy and stuff, and then the waters start receding and everything, then God's like, here you go, a rainbow after the rain. It's like, first time they've had rain, first time they have a rainbow. It makes sense. It makes sense.
Okay, alright. The more you know.
Yeah, the more you know. But, you know, there's a rainbow in that one too.
This is why we have Tristen as a friend.
Yes! This is what.
Oh my gosh, okay.
Oh gosh. And then, here we go. So after Noah, he has his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And they are now the new, like, major ancestors of humanity.
Yes.
Because humanity has a reset.
Yes.
And all of humanity still kind of fits together. They're still working together. They're still in civilization. And then they decide to make a tower. Run us through what that's all about. The tower's all about.
So basically, the Tower of Babel. You know, this is like a couple years, or not even a couple years. Probably like, we could say 30, 40 years after the flood, because you know. Because it says now the whole world had one language and common speech. From going from like 8 people to like many people, like that. There's probably a good amount of time that passed. And basically, obviously, the events of the flood was passed down. And so it seems like it was a response to what happened before.
Okay.
And so as a way to overcome that, and I guess even
interesting.
Okay. Because you know they said to each other, "Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly," and they used each brick instead of stone. and tar from mortar. They said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth." And so just from that, like the Tower of Babel, like it's really a story of ego, you know, because they want to make a name for themselves,
Right.
and they want to like they want to build it towards the heavens,
Right.
and so yeah, it could be interpreted as, okay, you know, the flood basically just wiped everyone out. Let's try to stay together and try to make ourselves into something great. I mean, because why else would you want to build something so high to the heavens?
Right.
You know, and why else would you fear, you know, being scattered?
Right.
So yeah, to me, it seems like it seems like it was a story of ego, because you know, the Lord went ahead and he confused the languages. He did the very thing. He confused the languages and made them scatter. He did the very thing
that they were afraid of.
So in a sense, it was they self-fulfilled a prophecy. You know.
Yeah.
So
it makes sense. And it's funny that like they ended up starting having these new languages, and I think that's where we get the word babbling from. Because it's Tower of Babel.
Yeah.
And they just start talking in different languages to each other. And think about this: none of them know the names for these different languages.
No.
Like, they just start talking differently, and somehow, some of them speak the same language. Other groups speak the same language, and they all end up in like smaller groups and scattering.
Yes.
In different languages, and they're like, "Well, frick, how do we communicate?" Some of them stuck closer together, and they were probably like, "Let's make pictures. We know how to do this."
Whose man's is this, dog? Whose man's is this? Okay.
Oh gosh.
It wasn't even that funny. Why am I laughing this much? Oh.
I have that effect on people.
Yes, you do.
No, but yeah, they just and then that's how the entire world just starts getting populated. Because people went over to like Asia and went over to Europe and Africa, and then some of them even crossed over into North and South America. Because like yeah, went like Russia right over to Alaska, ice melted. Oh crap, can't go back. And and then expanded down to North America, went down to South America. And there were civilizations before, obviously, like Christopher Columbus came about and the Spanish conquistadors and everything, because they're Native Americans, they're the Aztecs, Incas, Olmecs, all those civilizations. So there were people over there before the English, British, Spanish.
Before the Europeans went ahead and did their thing.
Yeah, right. So there were people there. So that's how the Earth becomes populated. And then, just in the next chapter, we start off with the main head of what is later going to be called the Israelites. And his name is Abraham. Currently Abram in chapter 12. But later God's going to change his name.
Spoiler.
Spoiler warning. But yeah, read Genesis. It's an amazing book. We're not going to try and spoil everything, but we're going to spoil a lot. Just so you know, it has a happy ending. Just saying. What?
Nothing.
Alright. Alright.
I didn't think Revelation was a happy ending.
It's a happy ending for those who follow God. Just saying.
Oh. Also, gotta keep in mind the perspective.
What perspective?
What we're doing is we're giving out a perspective and not to people to take that as absolute and full truth.
Oh, yeah. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's okay. Thank you, Ezra. That's why we have Ezra. He keeps us on track. Sort of.
now you have to explain what I just kind of explained.
So I forgot to say this at the beginning, but everybody, we are going through the Bible, yes. But we're giving our perspectives and we're giving our interpretations of what we've learned over the course of what we've learned. Mm-hmm. What we want to do is inform you that don't just take our words for it, but do your own study as well. And dive into the scripture and read the chapters, read the verses, do your own study. We're not God, we're not Jesus, but we can present the gospel to you, and we want to train you to study the Bible in your own right.
What he's saying is, this is descriptive, not prescriptive.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
yeah. Like that.
This is why I do what I do.
Yeah. If you can't see it, Ezra is basically shouting himself down.
No, I'm shouting at myself out. It's a mug that says because I'm Ezra, and on the other side it says why.
Ah.
Everything that I do is because I'm Ezra.
Yes.
He said because I'm me.
Yeah.
In other words, he said because I'm him.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm that guy. The two thumbs are pointing at me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Alright, so Abraham.
Yes.
So Abraham, father of many nations.
Mm-hmm.
That's a promise God gives to Abraham. But run me through, why is this a hard promise for Abraham to accept? That he's going to be a father of many nations.
Well, it's hard for him to accept because brother man is old. I mean, at the time, I think it said when God first appeared to him, I think Abraham was like Abram was like 76 years old. So in which for those of you that don't know, God limited the age to like I think 120.
Right.
So so he would just like a 76-year-old person is old, he was old. And so imagine me 76 years old.
Right.
You don't have children. And some deity comes and says, you're going to be a father of many nations. Where? Where? And like, how? Right. Because essentially, we can definitely say that Abram was nearing the end of his life. Dude already went through his childhood, his teenage years, his roaring 20s, his dirty 30s, and his 40s, and now it's like, okay, what more is there to do? Right. So he's already lived so much life, and maybe he tried to have children, but that was something that never happened, and maybe he was maybe he was kind of coming to terms with, all right, well, that's not gonna happen. And so when your mind's already set on one thing, but then God comes and says, oh, actually, this is gonna happen.
God was like, get Shrek, bro.
Right? And not even just Abraham, but his wife too. His wife was also skeptical. Yes. Very skeptical. And she even laughed at the idea. It was like, right, I'm barren. What are we gonna do? God, you're funny. You're a funny guy. You're funny. And then this is all happening while three strangers are coming and sitting with Abraham. And Abraham's kind of like, you guys must be from God or our God, okay? I know that. And so he's having basically a lunch with these guys. And Sarah overhears what they're saying, that Sarah's going to have a child and Abraham's going to be the father and stuff. And Sarah's like, Right. And then she gets a called out right there. And one of the three guys is like, hey, you laughed. And Sarah's like, oh, crap. Like, you heard that? And the three gentlemen are like, yeah, you're going to have a child. You're going to basically swallow your words right there. Eat your words. And they eventually do have a son. Sarah's 90.
Yes.
Abraham's 100 at that point.
Yes.
When they have a son, which is nuts. And that what?
Nothing.
What did he say? You know what?
Sorry, I was just doing my mustache.
Oh god. Oh my gosh. But yeah, they have a son, and his son's name is Isaac. They name him Isaac, and he starts like growing up and stuff, and then something really significant happens, which is a test. What?
Nothing, sorry.
Oh boy, I didn't even hear that one.
Hold it in, don't laugh, it's not funny.
Anyways, a very significant event happens, which is kind of like a test for Abraham and his faith.
Sorry.
It's alright. It's alright. We all need to let it out sometimes. It's okay.
I'm a professional comedian.
Yes, he is. So he's basically doing his job and doing it well. So.
Well is a question. I'm not doing it well.
You've gotten us a laugh pretty much every time you've spoken. So.
I didn't make you laugh that time.
Yeah, I didn't hear it.
I heard it, but you know.
You said something drastic happened. I said his parents died.
Oh. Oh. Bro.
He still laughed.
We're not there yet.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Anyways, Abraham. You did.
Okay, I'll shut up. Sorry.
Oh gosh. I haven't even had coffee this morning, and this is what we're doing already.
If we had a mental breakdown counter, I'd be at 90.
Oh, okay.
But, alright, Abraham, test of faith.
Got it.
So.
If you're confused, there was a time skip.
Yeah, there was a time skip because, Sodom and Gomorrah, they burned to ash. That was a whole thing. Abraham had to rescue his nephew twice. Once while he was in Sodom and Gomorrah from these kings who kind of took over Sodom and Gomorrah and took everybody out of there. And Abraham raised up an army and said hey, let's go get them back. And they did. They did a taken and they got them back. And then he kind of rescued Lot a little bit because he had a conversation with God about Sodom and Gomorrah. Hey, don't burn down Sodom and Gomorrah if there's such and such number of righteous people in it. And what's really cool about this conversation is that Abraham and God are able to have basically a negotiation talk.
Yes.
Abraham's hold on, God. It's 50. What if there's 40? And God's all right, sure. And then Abraham's wait, hold on, God. I have a better offer. God, what if there's 30? And God's all right, sure. And then he's bringing it all down to I don't know if it's 10.
What if there's one?
It's 10.
Oh, 10.
It's 10. And Abraham eventually gets God down to 10. And it's hey, if there is 10 in Sodom and Gomorrah who still worship you and are righteous, please don't burn it down. And God's alright, bet. And so he sends in 2 angels, and these angels come to Lot and tell him hey, you need to get out of the city, man. everybody's gonna burn. So they already know there ain't 10 righteous people in that city. It's like God already knew. Abraham was kind of having this negotiation with Abraham and God were having this negotiation. God's already like, yeah, there just ain't that many people in there, but okay, you can talk me down. I don't care.
I think what's still kind of cool though is he actually was able to have that conversation.
Right, it was cool. It was cool to have that conversation, given the fact that it's like you're talking to God, who is going to smite 2 cities. Just like he is going to do it, and you're able to talk with him like that. It's like, okay.
It puts some humility in perspective though too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does.
It's like God is a overwhelmingly powerful God, but he still is willing to like, let me get down on your level so that you can actually kind of understand where I'm coming from, kind of thing. It's really cool.
It is really cool. So, now we're going to the time skipped thing.
There are many things skipped, but we're
Yeah,
Yeah.
you skipped the whole thing with Lot.
I
The
went
whole story.
we skipped a lot. You decided to go over Ishmael.
Ishmael.
But
Ishmael's a bit kind of big. Yeah, Ishmael is kind of the father of Islam, actually, given the fact that he was separated from Abraham, and he still believed in God, but he was the father of all the people in the Middle East that eventually took on Islam. And because what Islam does is that they view their lineage, they literally view their lineage all the way through Ishmael, not through Isaac, which is what Israel goes through. So, Ishmael is basically the father of Islam, and Islam kind of becomes like this big, opposition to Judaism, kind of more in modern days.
I'd be careful how far we go on that.
Yeah, that's
true.
not.
I'd be careful just one because this will be going on YouTube. And
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's fair.
Technically, Ishmael, he's the father of the Arab nations, and then Muhammad, so basically, Islam traces their lineage, Ishmael being the firstborn to Abraham. But yeah, so.
Yes.
Yes.
That's an entire thing. But
Sorry.
hey, I'm learning how to
That's
do
a knee
this.
slapper.
I'm learning how to do this. All right.
Uh-huh.
Hey, first down.
Did you drink the pink juice or something?
No.
Got a little of the pink drink?
Maybe. I
Can I
don't
just
know.
back of the head?
I don't know,
Just kidding.
bro.
It's okay, you're allowed to laugh. You don't have to hold it in. Let it come out.
Yeah.
Comedy.
Yeah. Oh my
I
gosh.
could talk to you in Fred's voice.
Ah,
Fred? Who?
that's a
Frank is my
puppet.
little buddy.
He's a
I'm
ventriloquist.
I go downtown every day and perform on the street.
Yeah.
I beg for money with a puppet. How does that make you feel? Professionally beg for money.
This went from funny to awkward for him. I don't know why.
Why? Does that make you feel weird? Comedy.
Yes.
Alright, I'm not helping you with the progression of this podcast.
No, you are not. I said an hour and 15. This might be too. Oh my gosh. Anyways, to what I was originally trying to get to.
No, we don't want to go back to that.
No, what I was trying to get to.
Oh, get to, okay.
Yeah,
That's
which
where you're getting to, not where you're going from.
Yeah, exactly. So where I was trying to get to was the test with Abraham. You good?
It's okay. We need to give him a minute, okay?
We need
Come
to
on,
give
we
him a
need to
break.
give him-
My goodness.
We need to give him a minute
I know
to
this is
calm
a
down.
shell shock seeing this entire dynamic.
Oh.
So what you'll notice is this is what I do. My job is I understand what we're talking about and I have little things that talk about. But most of the time I just try to see how many times I can break him in the whole entire thing. And do I do it very consistently? Yes. The funny part is most of the time I can keep a straight face the whole time, so I can just make him laugh and make it look like I didn't think it was funny.
See,
Exactly.
that's
Yeah.
also because the mustache, bro.
Yeah, the
Like,
mustache. He's got some Doc Holliday thing going on there, and
I'm waiting for myself to get a pipe and a monocle.
yeah,
A top hat.
yeah. The fall.
My man think he Watson.
Yeah,
Hey.
yeah,
I've never seen it, but I'm okay. I want to watch it at some point.
yeah, yeah. All right, so the test of Abraham. We said this like 5 times. My word. So imagine being given a promise, right, by God.
With you.
Imagine being given a promise, and he's like, all right, here you go, bro. You are going to have a son. And it comes about. You have a son. And this son ends up growing up, and he's healthy, strong. He's going to be a great father of the nations. And then God tells you, hey, remember that promise I told you about? What if I just said we were making a revision?
Plot twist.
God tells Abraham, like, I want you to go to this mountain. I think it's Mount Hebron, if I'm not wrong. Which one is it?
One of them.
It does say just on one of the mountains.
He said.
It says go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains. So
What
yeah,
part of Genesis are you in?
22, chapter 22 of Genesis.
Let's do some research.
So, yeah, God basically says, so I'm going to test your faith in me. And your promised son, I want you to sacrifice him on a mountain. I want you to go up there and sacrifice him. Mm-hmm. And Abraham's probably like, well, alright. And he goes, he puts materials on a donkey, takes his son, and a couple of servants, and they go to the mountain.
You're right, Mount Moriah.
It's Mount Moriah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In
And-
the land of Moriah.
Shout out to Mariah.
Moriah.
Somebody.
Yeah,
You know?
it's somebody.
I know Shaniqua.
Okay.
Sorry, didn't mean to spill your ego.
What are you doing? Somehow you're breaking him. I don't know how, but you are.
Well, the problem is I have words and so I use them.
Shaniqua? Where did Shaniqua got it? Okay, alright.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Abuse.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't abusive language, I just
He said
said English.
Alright, we're gonna cut you off.
Okay. Hey,
We're cutting
don't
you
worry, don't worry. In the biblical time, I am
Editor,
already
mute
covered.
him.
I'm the editor.
Editor, mute yourself.
I can mute you.
Alright, I challenge you. Anyways,
Last 50 seconds of his speech will just be gone. All you see is his mouth moving and it'll be mine, and then I'll put whatever words I want.
Hey, fair enough.
And all he'll be saying is apple juice.
Oh my gosh. Anyways, so they're going to Mount Moriah. Isaac and Abraham and a couple of servants with a donkey. And they're going up the mountain. Abraham tells the servants, hey, stay behind. And then Abraham and Isaac go up. I'm sure at this point, Isaac's like, hey, Dad, we have all this material. Where the sacrifice? And Abraham's like, the Lord will provide. And they get up to the top. Abraham builds an altar, puts the wood on, and Isaac's still like, all right, where the sacrifice? And Abraham is like, the Lord will provide, as he's tying the ropes around the hands of Isaac, about to put him on the altar. And here's the crazy part. Abraham had Isaac at 100. And now Abraham's probably like in his late 110s. He's not going to be wrestling his son onto that altar. So Isaac has to be willingly accepting this fate of being put on the altar.
Yeah, I learned from one of my classes that Isaac. So the idea is that Isaac is like a little boy, just obeying his father. But this might be like a 17, 18-year-old,
right,
or even a 20-year-old,
right.
That's willing that he knows that there's supposed to be a sacrifice,
right.
But it possibly dawns on him, wait, I'm the sacrifice, and so if you love your life, you're gonna want to preserve it. So,
but also keep in mind the biblical context as well is like you're honoring God, and
right.
so like when God comes in or puts His hand on it, you follow the plan of God because His plan overrules anything that you had in your preset mind or whatever. And also like we think about our times now, everyone has all these mental illnesses and everything like that, and like anxiety and stuff. What do you think Isaac was feeling like at that time? Like, do you think he had anxiety or like yeah, probably. But if you think about it too, is like right at the end, I'm not trying to spoil it too much, but God's like, there's the ram stuck in the shrubs or whatever. But it's like God came in and was like, here. It's like you either have like this really big spike of anxiety, like Isaac probably had that because he was like, I'm about to die.
Right.
And then at the same time, it's like, but God provided. And so like you have like you kind of feel like there's this tension, and there's a goat. And it's like, it's like probably like, to me, I feel like that would be an overwhelming peace that Isaac gets hit with.
Right.
After like the immediate like he's hanging on like I don't know where it's going because like he probably did want to fight for his life. But now where we're at in society, it's like if something big happens to you, you start becoming like your own downfall because you're like, oh, this happened to me and now I have to live with that.
Yes.
But like I think in that time that would not be a thing. That wouldn't be like, well, I know that God saved me, so that's like it's like it's not gonna be like a thing. It would be a crutch. It's like, oh, I was almost killed. It's like no, you wouldn't see that in the Bible. People stayed strong. People knew who their identity was in God.
That's crazy. Because imagine this, like Abraham probably told Isaac about what God told Abraham. Of like,
that's a good point.
Like he's probably been ran through the stories of all the promises and all the things that Abraham's going to, maybe not see in his lifetime, but be a part of. And it's like Isaac is running through this in his mind of like, I was the promised son.
Yes.
And like, this is all like, this entire story is all a picture of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Because he was the promised son. He was God's one and only son. On that cross, on the hill of Golgotha, and he was presented to all mankind. But in this case, Jesus was that ram. There was no ram to replace him. And so, like, Isaac having this sense of humility and trust towards his father and towards God is a picture of Christ's humility and trust in God as well. Like, they both know that everything's going to work out, no matter what. They have trust in God that something will work out. And the fathers are going through with what they know they have to do. And it's like, it's a beautiful picture.
Also on top of that, think about because since all of that history and stuff was all verbal, and when they would like share like their like the things that happened, like imagine the impact that had on other people, that they heard this account. Like, this is something that's like really big. It's like, okay, the plan was that I was going to go to sacrifice my son, but then God provided. And that shows to the other people that are around, they're like, oh, God does provide. And so it kind of does like, it like, okay, so God really is like, he is here, he is with us, he is showing his mercy towards us. So that's another thing to like keep in mind as well, because everything was so verbal, and stories were like, if you told a story in that time, you would get on street corrected if you said something wrong.
Right.
Like, that's like, if it's verbally telling the story. Is my mustache throwing you off that much?
No.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm just thinking about everything.
Yeah. No, you're good. I do that too. Sometimes I'm just like, but like, yeah, it's like there's such a big impact with like, it's like, if the history, like from something like that had just, it was continually repeated. It's like, okay, God, I know that you're here, and I know that you're working. Okay, what more steps can we take to show that we trust you?
So one thing I just saw was like the day that it was taking place, because it's mentioned on the third day Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance, and so that's when him and Isaac are going up, and so so basically the sacrifice was take place on the third day. Isaac was about to be sacrificed, but then a ram, God provided.
Right.
And so,
Right.
so who else do we know, or what story do we know that, on the third day, something big happened?
Right. Jesus Christ.
The resurrection.
Exactly. He's like, and psych, I'm that guy.
Right?
So yeah, it's
the Bible's crazy, man.
Yes. So I take a class called, one of my senior classes at the university is called Seminar in Biblical Hermeneutics. And my professor, he said that once you start seeing like the connections between the New Testament and the Old Testament, and how like everything points to Jesus, it's hard not to see it.
Right.
Because like some people don't really know much about the Old Testament. It's like some people like consider the Old Testament as like not as like separate from the New Testament. That okay, the Old Testament was that bloody mess with that blood god or whatever, and the New Testament is Jesus.
Right.
But it's not separate. They coincide with each other.
Like God is the same yesterday, today, and forever.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, so this is a beautiful picture, and you have two of the patriarchs that God like says he is of. He calls himself the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And Jacob is the son of Isaac, one of two twins, from Isaac and Rebecca. Isaac gets a wife, her name's Rebecca. That's a whole beautiful story of how Abraham helps get Isaac a wife. And single men, man. But then Jacob and Esau, they're twins. Esau's the firstborn technically.
Yes.
And he's going to get the birthright. Jacob ends up tricking his father into giving him the birthright. Because Rebecca knows that Jacob is supposed to be blessed, and also she favors Jacob over Esau.
Yeah. He doesn't only trick his father; he also tricks his brother.
He does. He does do that too,
for some food.
Yeah, with some food. Yeah. Wow.
How you gonna give it your entire? How you become so? You gotta be so hungry. You gotta be so hungry to give up your entire birthright. Basically the birthright of your father, to give that away for a bowl of stew.
Right. You gotta be so hungry.
And also, Esau must have sucked as a hunter. I'm not gonna front. He must have sucked.
True. True.
Sorry. That's just.
But
Go ahead.
yeah.
It's okay. You're fine. You're allowed to be funny.
No reason to apologize. But then Jacob runs away because Esau's like, I'm gonna kill him. I'm gonna take back what was rightfully mine. And Jacob's like, all right, bye. I'm leaving. So
Bye,
he
Felicia.
leaves. What?
Bye, Felicia.
Yeah, pretty much. And Jacob ends up receiving some of his own medicine because he gets tricked by his
Future father-in-law.
future and father-in-law into marrying both of his daughters. Because Jacob wanted to marry his future father-in-law's youngest daughter. But the father-in-law was like, all right, cool. Rachel.
That was her.
Rachel and
Leia
Leia was
the older one.
And the father-in-law was like, okay, cool. Work for me for 7 years. And then the father-in-law tricks him and gives Jacob Leia as his wife, which, interestingly enough, like, the wife was veiled.
On the wedding.
On the wedding day. So you didn't know.
And then he didn't find out till the day after.
Mm-hmm.
So basically she wasn't only just veiled on the wedding day, she was also veiled when they slept together, or like because the cover of darkness, which
that's crazy.
That means they did the deed possibly, and you wake up like, wait a minute. You are not who I... That's
a little sketchy.
No,
yeah,
it is.
It's very sketchy.
It
like
is.
The father-in-law did a crazy thing, and then got 7 more years of work out of Jacob. On top of that, in order to get Rachel.
Yes, which it's like how determined.
All right, fair enough. That is very determined.
No, yeah, how determined you gotta be. I mean, not only like he must have loved her. Either he must have loved her that much, or she was that good looking. Like how, like 7 years, 7 years. You gonna work 7 years to get a woman. Like
be tricked and then work another 7.
See, man, if it was me, I'm like, I'm out.
But that's not how.
I think the interesting thing was weren't they arranged though too?
Yes.
So then,
in a way,
if
yeah.
If it's arranged, it's like, okay, well, I guess I have to work.
It's kind of true. It would. I mean, Jacob had to work the 7 years after he got Rachel. Like he was married to Leia, realized he was tricked, then he was married to Rachel, and then he worked the other 7 years.
Yeah.
So
like, I guess I have to work because like I got the carpet swept out from under me, but whatever.
And then Jacob becomes the literal father of Israel, because his name gets changed from Jacob to Israel after he wrestles with God, which is the craziest wrestling match. I would love to see the WWE footage on that one.
Ding ding ding.
Imagine they going at it. God gives the man a German suplex.
Wrenches his hip out of socket.
What's it called? The holy ring comes from the ground. got the bands and everything. Ground pound.
And Jacob somehow is able to hold on to God and be like, hey, I'm not letting go until you bless me. And so God blesses him.
Which is very interesting that when God was telling Jacob to let go of him, he's like, yo, let go of me. It's sunrise. It's like It's like God was like, "Ooh, yeah, I overstayed my welcome. I gotta go." It's just how you gonna run the fade? You gonna pop up, throw hands with me, then say, "Oh, I gotta go." That's just disrespectful. I'm like,
sorry, God, we're calling you disrespectful, but but bro, he is a gangster. I do have to say, God knows how to do stuff and be like, yeah, I did.
It's like, let me leave you Shrek. Just remember this.
it's like my hip.
Right? And then Jacob ends up having 12 children. And those 12 children are each a father of a tribe of Israel.
Yes.
And then you have the story of Joseph, which Joseph is one of the 2 sons of Rachel. And Joseph ends up being sold into slavery and ends up going to Egypt and becomes basically the savior of the family of Israel. Because God worked through Joseph to be humble. After, of course, he just like blabbed the biggest ego boost to his brothers of like, hey, y'all are going to bow down to me. And the brothers hate it. And so they sell him into slavery. Joseph learns humility. He learns how to be a leader. And he learns how to be faithful to God. And he's in prison. He gets to be a servant of Potiphar. And he also is put to the test for purity. Because Potiphar's wife tries to take a shot at him. And he's like, no. And runs away. And he ends up in prison. He ends up being put in a high position in the prison by the, who's the person that, is, overseeing the prison?
Keeper. Whatever.
Yeah, I guess we can call him, the overseer.
I guess so, yeah. The overseer puts him, over these prisoners.
And he prophesied people's doom.
Right, and then the Pharaoh has dreams, and the baker's like, oh yeah, there was this one guy who interpreted my dream. Joseph comes back, interprets the dreams for Pharaoh, and Pharaoh's like, you look like you've got some potential.
But also, the Pharaoh didn't just have a dream. I think dreams back then were way different than how we see dreams now. Dreams are just oh, we understand the brain, so it's a weird vision. But I think then they didn't understand what their dreams were
right.
at all. They didn't know why or when how they got them and things like that. And so Pharaoh didn't only just call for Joseph just because he had magicians, he had wizards, and
right.
Every form of people who could read minds and stuff like that, there. So it was a last major call kind of thing.
Right.
It wasn't just oh well, I had a dream. Go get the guy out of prison. No.
Right. So yeah, and then Joseph tells Pharaoh that hey, there's going to be 7 years of really good harvest, and then 7 years of terrible famine afterwards. So you got to prepare. But Pharaoh's like, do you know how to prepare? And Joseph's like, give me a shot. And Pharaoh gives him second command over the entire country of Egypt. And Joseph puts into plan storing up grain for the famine. And eventually, Jacob is over in his land away from Egypt, and he needs food because he's also affected by the famine, and he sends his sons to Egypt. And the sons and Joseph is a great story about forgiveness, because Joseph checks and sees if the brothers are still the same people that they were when he left.
Sorry, it. What you said connected in terms of a relationship of mine, but keep. I'll say a little bit about it.
Okay.
Once you finish your
summary. But he checked to see if the brothers were still the same people they were as when he left. And he goes through. I think they went through 3 visits.
Yes.
3 visits before he finally revealed I can't do this anymore. I can't hide my identity from you. I am Joseph. And they're all like, what? And they're all like, oh, I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh. And then Joseph's like, it's alright. God provided.
Uh-huh.
And I'm here, and I'm here because I would help you out. And so, it's just a beautiful story of forgiveness, and that's kind of how Genesis kind of wraps up, is that the family of Israel is now living in Egypt, and they have their own piece of land, and they're in Egypt, and they're kind of living the good life, as it were. And then you get into the events of Exodus.
Yeah.
But also that didn't happen he didn't just get sold in because it was like he was the favorite of.
And he was the favorite of his father's.
They got all jealous, and that's why they decided to like throw him in a well.
Yeah.
Like take his coat and
Right.
sell it or something like that.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just like, oh, he got sold. No, it was like there was a whole thing behind him, and that's why they would have had a little bit of unforgiveness towards him, and that's why he was probably checking to see if they were still like that. Like they realized after they had done what they did to him that like their father, yes, he had some favoritism, but like he was still one of their sons. Like he was still one of their brothers. So
Right. Right.
I mean, because it's because with that story, you know, essentially there's in total 12 of y'all, 12 of y'all that was born at different times, or I guess we should say like 11 y'all because Benjamin wasn't born till later technically, but basically, you know, the one brother that happened to be born from the more favored wife, you know, is favored than all of y'all. So whenever there's a favorite, you know, it can kind of create some tension.
Right.
always.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And then on top of that, when the favorite is talking about these dreams about how you'll be basically bowing down to him.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, Pops loves you more than us. That's a little hard, but then you start, but then at that point you just feel disrespected.
Yeah.
You in which I think like one of the major things of Genesis, creation and pointing to Jesus, but also like just the behaviors of humanity.
Right.
You know, ego, shame, anger, resentment.
Yeah.
And so it really showed, and then even desperation. You know, how they drive us to do like these things. You know, to you know, with Joseph, they were ready to kill him, but then one brother Reuben, he's like, well, let's not kill him, let's just like sell him, and then make it seem like he died, which, you know, that's pretty traumatic for, you know, for a father to find out that your son is dead, but he's enslaved. Right. You know? Yeah. And so then, you know, years upon years pass by. And there's a famine in your land, and you send your sons to go to Egypt, not knowing that the favorite son is actually still alive. So yeah, how that story is just so amazing, because it kind of, like, Joseph is faced with a choice to either get back at his brothers, because he has every right to, or to go and above and beyond what he feels to I guess be better.
This is kind of like a counter to like what the world would say is this, but where God's compassion comes in and care and mercy and grace and all that, it's like, this is what we did instead. It's kind of like a corrective. This is how you would respond to this kind of, like, I guess, hate towards you, or like whatever, like the turn the other cheek kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And throughout the rest of the Bible, God is kind of referred to as the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Yes.
And what's interesting is that we call ourselves like children of God in the church, but with God referring himself, like we call ourselves children of God, but he refers himself as the God of our ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
Which is such an interesting dynamic.
Yes.
Because God can have respect for humanity.
Yes.
He can have respect for certain human beings. And he had a respect for those three men. And those three patriarchs of Israel. And this book, Genesis, is the book of beginnings in so many ways. Because it starts off humanity. It starts off the earth. It starts off redemption. It starts off sin. It starts off the entire nation of Israel. It starts off the family that we now get to be a part of as Christians. Because having only Israel as your descendant, you got Ishmael and Isaac. So for Abraham being the father of many nations, only having technically two, he's not necessarily the father of many at that point, but he's the father of many nations because of his faith.
Yes.
And his faith is what connects him through all of us as being children through him, through Adam, to God. And so that's another crazy part of the redemptive family, not just the physical family. And yeah, it's the Book of Beginnings, and it's so important to read through and so important to understand how God started it all and understand what was important before humanity failed and before Israel became Israel, in order to know what's meant for us. Because this isn't Exodus. Exodus has all the stories of how Israel got out of slavery, and they're given the Ten Commandments and laws and regulations. That happens in Exodus. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob never had that. They just had faith and a relationship with God. And God favored them for it. And that's crazy.
Yeah.
Because that's what God wants for us. Is faith and relationship with him.
Yes.
So.
Yes. In which, I guess, even to try to to add on to that, I mean, God even told Abraham that your descendants would be slaves. And so I just imagine, you are someone who is way past the age of trying to have children.
Right.
But you have this all-powerful deity telling you all these things. Telling you all these things that you won't see.
Right.
I mean, you're gonna see the firstborn, but after that, the last thing Abraham did was sending his servant to find a wife for his son Isaac, and then he died.
Right.
So, so basically, just you basically been given this knowledge of what's supposed to happen in the future. But it's going to take place after you.
Right.
So I think it just says a lot in terms of what it means to believe. Because I mean, obviously, we as Christians, we believe that Jesus will come back.
Right.
But that may not be in our lifetime.
Right.
And so, how do we act? How are we going to operate with the knowledge that we have?
Right.
Some people kind of take some Christians kind of just oh well, that means that the world's gonna burn anyway, and so so they don't necessarily participate in society.
Right.
But God didn't create us to isolate or to be isolated.
Right.
He created us to be in the world. So I think it really just, Abraham, like, Abraham did some good, but also there are times where he messed up and whatnot. And I mean, even like the entire story of Genesis, you got people doing right, also people doing a lot of wrong.
Yeah.
And so Jesus may not come back in our lifetimes, but even though he might not come back, how shall we live?
Right. And that's just a great look at what the Book of Genesis actually is.
Yeah. And it also shows that God works through an imperfect world.
Right. Yeah.
If it was all perfect, it'd be like all those other religions that are like, oh, well, the Messiah came through a perfect whatever. And it's like, no, the earth isn't perfect. Like, nobody on here is perfect. Only way that we would show that God's true glory and shining is through working through the imperfect world that we have.
Yeah. So, yeah, man, we hit a lot of points. We hit a lot of good points. Oh my gosh, it's so much information. But it's so good to just look over these stories and remember what happened, so then we don't make the same mistakes. And we can also replicate what was done right. So yeah. I think that's going to be our episode for today. It may have been... This is a really long episode. Don't know if it's an hour and a half or 2 hour long one, but it was long. But
he shrugged his shoulders.
it's fine. But yeah, thank you for all you brought to the discussion.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was great to have you on.
Don't worry, you'll be here more.
He likes you.
I like your humor, and it vibes well with us. So
thank you.
Don't worry, you'll be here.
Cool. Well, I'm gonna pray us out.
Okay.
So, Lord God, we thank you for this time that we get to just talk about your word. We get to talk about you, and we just get to talk about the gospel. God, thank you for all that you have done for humanity, and that you've been able to work through imperfect people in an imperfect world. And thank you for leaving all of these beginnings of things in this book that we get to read and we get to learn from. And God, I pray that we just don't forget, and we continue to live our lives to give you glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Well, thank you for joining us on this episode of The Basement. We'll see you next time.